We are witnessing the dawn of Shonen's latest epic rivalry right before our very eyes, and I've got to say it's refreshing and somewhat nostalgic. Like, I genuinely love the feeling of reading a series knowing that we are going into something epic, and also knowing that we've barely even just scratched the surface of what has come here, because Chihiro and Sojo are two characters. They're basically the complete polar opposites of each other in this story, and their rivalry is just slowly but surely being revealed to us throughout Kagurabachi's chapters. And right now we're only 13 chapters deep and we got a lot to go through. But before we get into the video, I just want to ask you guys to all take a moment to consider subscribing, as we're trying to get to 30k before the year ends. And if you like Kagurabachi and Jujutsu Kaisen, this is most likely the place for you to be. But this chapter picks up where we left off, with Sojo standing face to face with the Kamunabi, which is Kagurabachi's elite fighting force of the world so far. There's a lot of death flags for them right now, but you know, we won't touch about that right now. Remember how a couple chapters ago how I said Sojo was so ready to throw hands with these guys, and only reason that he didn't was because of Azumi and Shiba being there, and that's what stopped him. Turns out that was kind of a fake out, because Sojo is actually disappointed right now that they aren't even present at the current fight, which is kind of nuts, because he's had one fight with Cloud Gouger and now he wants to test his mettle against the Kamunabi, and he kind of really wanted Azumi and Shiba to be there as test dummies, basically, which is kind of nuts. Like I said, and I will continue to say, this man Sojo is on track to become Shonen's next big villain, and Takeru continues to write him as best as he can. And honestly, I'm excited to see the growth of this dude. He really does remind me of like the Joker or Mahito. He's got this flair to him. It's just different. But this fight starts and we see this unnamed sorcerer using Gansui, which is something we've already seen before. But as Piku on Twitter here followed, if you haven't already, go follow them. I'll leave a link to them in the description down below. But the last time we saw it, it was only one hand being used, whereas this time it was actually both hands being used, which does make me wonder if sorcery in Kagurabachi is very, very similar to Jujutsu Kaisen, where when simple hand signs and incantations work, but using the full incantations and the full range of hand signs adds extra oomph to the fucking attack. Anyway, we get this fight playing out in tandem with a flashback from the Kamunabi and Chihiro discussing basically the battle plan on how is best for them to attack Sojo here, with Chihiro explaining that Sojo's enchanted blade Cloud Gouger, and explaining how it has 3 abilities similar to Chihiro's N10. And those 3 abilities are Yui, which is ice that balances offense and defense, Ko, which is water to disorientate and cloak as needed, and finally Mei, the highly lethal lightning attack, which is interesting to me that 2 enchanted blades so far that we've seen throughout the series, the only 2 that we've seen so far, both have 3 abilities, and I wonder if that'll be the trend going forward, or if they'll specialize in certain things entirely. Maybe we'll get like an earth style sword. I'm not entirely sure, but the vibe that I'm getting right now is that they're all sort of elemental based. Maybe we could go in a completely entirely different direction here, where they could be based off mythological creatures. I don't know, there's probably a hell of a lot of theory crafting that we could get just from these swords alone. However, Azumi drops a small bombshell within this chapter here, which is something I think will be pivotal in the fight against Sojo. But it turns out the Kamunabi actually have 6 members total, which makes sense as we were only introduced to 5 of them back in chapter 11. But interestingly, the Kamunabi's plan here is to not fight Sojo in a 1v1, but rather just jump him. Classic Jujutsu Kaisen jumping style here. They mention how they need a surefire strategy against him, but it seems that the plan is to basically lure him over to the ocean, which is mentioned here when they are using an attack to get him on an ice cube, and basically Sojo mistakes this have an aerial battle to avoid collateral damage within the city down below. But it seems that their goal right now is to kind of get them over to the ocean, because it's mentioned how the ocean is 2 kilometers away. So it makes me wonder if that is their whole plan here. From here though, the fight starts to get incredibly intense, with multiple members pulling up on Sojo and not being able to do anything to him. However, that's not their plan for now. The plan is actually simply to draw out Sojo's Mei attack. And according to Chihiro, Mei is the best one big beastie boy that will absolutely fuck them. And interestingly enough, Sojo ends up getting a Mei attack off when it's fused together with Ko, which is the water attack. But this Mei is only a partially charged one and does a fair amount of damage to the Kamunabi here. But when we look at Chihiro, who took this attack and he was taking a fully charged one and came away with a damaged arm and heavy body damage, but Chihiro claims that this would be absolutely fatal for one of the Kamunabi to take head on. However though, the Kamunabi's plan is to be hit by Mei in order to open up a opening for them to rush Sojo with a bunch of attacks and overwhelming. We have this flashback of the Kamunabi and Chihiro using the bathroom, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why it reminded me a little bit of Rush Hour. I'm not entirely sure, but they're using that bathroom when Chihiro basically drops the bombshell to say, let Mei attack them, let that attack hit, even mentioning how if this plan goes badly, you know, people will die here. And I can't help but not notice here the fact that Chihiro kind of seems very, very cold and indifferent, and maybe even callous towards these guys, giving them the information that they need. And he finishes all of this off by giving them all the information. He says, you have the ingredients you need and you can manage the rest, right? I mean, you are an elite squad after all. It kind of felt like cold, callous. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it's just me, but let me know in the comments down below if you picked up on that. But it did feel a bit yikes. But Ikuto here, which is, interestingly, by the way, the only Kaminabi member that we've had who's given an official name outside of Azumi and Shiba. Maybe they are not Kaminabi, but you get what I'm saying here. But he's the only one out of this group, out of this 5, or maybe 6, who's been given an official name. But Ikuto launches a Jikai, which turns the ice block that they've been on top of into water. And this launches the Kaminabi up into the air safely away from the Mei-infused water that Sojo had just already cast, and leaves Sojo opening for an attack, for a rush of attacks. However, the window that they have here is only 10 seconds long until Sojo's Mei has recharged fully and is back. But at the same time this is all happening, Chihiro is getting information from this guy. Remember this guy? Chihiro appeared in front of him like fucking Batman last chapter. Also, it turns out that Takeru is actually a big fan of Batman, which is, I think, is kind of cool. And you can definitely see that reflected in a lot of Chihiro's appearances here. Anyway, this guy lets Chihiro know that Shaw is actually locked up. But unfortunately for Chihiro, there will be sorcerers standing guard. And those 2 sorcerers just so happen to be the same sorcerers who kidnapped Shaw and seem to be Sojo's left and right hand men. Most likely, it sounds like that. But this is where we get some juicy information on the enchanter blades, and more so how they work and how they function based off their owners, where we're treated to a flashback of Chihiro's dad mentioning how the Daten Sekai and its limitations can be completely transformed based on its holder. As this is said, we're given a parallel panel of both Sojo and Chihiro here, and it comes across as if we're about to see some sort of awakening when it comes to these two and how their powers work, and possibly even Chihiro coming close to the limits of his body and maybe Sojo overcoming the limits of his swords. I don't know, because when you look at the fights that these two have had against each other, they're basically 2 sides to the same coin. On one side, you have Sojo, whose body is ready and is capable, but it lacks the knowledge for the swords to use them yet. But on the other side of this coin, you have Chihiro, whose body is lacking, but he does have the sword knowledge, and it is immense, but he just doesn't have the body capabilities to use the swords yet, or so it seems anyway. And I love the parallels and the build-up between these two, and I genuinely really love how Takeru is building up their powers and the characters side by side. By the way, I just want to point out, we are only 13 chapters in, and it feels as if we are building to something truly fucking amazing. It kind of, I don't know why, but it half reminds me of Naruto and Sasuke in their side-by-side journey. Only a little bit, but the comparisons are a little bit there. It just reminds me of like 2 people paralleling each other, one going one way, one going the other, but they're sort of like similar paths. But anyway, that is all from me. It's absolutely another stellar chapter from Takeru and Kagurabachi here. This manga is genuinely being so, it's been doing so incredibly well as far as I'm concerned. But that is all from me. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. Go drink some water. Make sure you tell someone you love them. And as always, I will catch you guys all in the next one. Much love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.